Hello again, arts fundraisers, and welcome back to Creative Capital. This chapter focuses on fundraising messaging. Creating a powerful fundraising message is one of the most important steps in securing a gift. Your message needs to resonate with potential donors and clearly communicate the impact of their support, and do it in a way that draws them into being part of the organization's success story. How do we do that? Here's a few ideas. First, we turn the mirror outward. Fundraising messages often fall flat because they focus too much on the organization and not enough on the donor's values and aspirations. Flip that script. Talk about why it matters to them. When you turn the mirror outward, donors start to see themselves in your story, not just your needs. Number two, every strong message stands on three legs: a compelling value, a credible solution, and an invitation to act. So skip one and the whole stool wobbles. Nail all three and your fundraising messages become very magnetic. Number three, tailor messages to different donor categories. Major donors, broad-based fundraising supporters, and first-time donors don't always think the same, and they certainly don't give in the same way. Segmenting your message shows respect for the donor's relationship with your mission. One-size-fits-all pitch doesn't work well for anyone. A donor who's been giving to you for a long time and they give at a higher level will know much more about your organization and your situation than a brand new donor who's just starting to get to know your institution. Number four, build an emotional connection. People give when they feel something. They feel pride or urgency or joy, or sometimes even outrage. And emotions, we believe, is the glue that binds those facts to action. If your message doesn't tug at the heart, it won't really open the wallet. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get into developing this message. Number five is make clear, specific asks. Don't dance around it. I know sometimes it's hard to make the ask, and sometimes for a volunteer to make the ask. But be direct. Be direct. You're going to ask for a specific amount, and it's usually going to go to the general operating support for all the good things that you do as an institution. Vague appeals lead to vague responses. Remember that. Vague appeals lead to vague responses. So clarity, on the other hand, gives donors confidence and a clear path to say yes. We want them to understand it, and once they understand it, they are much more likely to say yes to our request. In a moment, I'll get into some of RSC's best practices, but to start, here's a reminder as to the motivations of giving. We believe that people will gravitate towards one of these three. They'll either give because of what it does for the arts organization, for your institution. They'll give because they're big believers in community. So they'll give for what your organization does in the community, or they'll give because of what it does for them personally. Sometimes that's a peer-to-peer thing, but oftentimes it's just they want certain experiences. They want to feel a relationship with an institution, and yours is it, which is a great thing. Learning what their key attraction to your institution will become paramount, especially the longer the relationship goes, the deeper it grows, the more that you know what their specific interests are and what is their motivation for giving. I'm not saying it can't be all three. In many cases, it is all three of these. But what you'll find over time is that each donor tends to gravitate more toward one of these than the other two. So in that light, let's talk about RSC's best practices for case development. How do we write the case? And that first idea, turn the mirror outward. Talk about your organization's value, not its need. We're not viewed as a charity. So include the donor in this picture of turning the mirror outward. How does your institution look in the community? What value do you add? And where does the donor fall into this picture? Number two, the components of an effective message is a combination of three things: facts, feelings, and finances. A great message is built on those components, and each of these speaks to a different part of your donor's motivation. The facts obviously tell donors exactly what you do, how you do it, who you do it for, why it matters. The feelings connect with their emotions, why it's such a high value, why it's essential to do these things and have the kind of impact that you're talking about. And of course, the finances, why is your mission meaningful to them? Share personal stories that demonstrate the impact of their support. It's a great way to tell stories through that feeling, because the human experience offers us the emotion that can go into a case statement, and it's all true and it's all real, and so we should talk about it. And the third component, of course, is finances. We have to show that we're capable of paying for it through support of good donors and good underwriters. So donors need to understand that they have a role in this success story as well. Number 3, tailor your message for different prospect groups. Now, I'm talking usually about subtle differences, not wholesale change differences. Different donors have different motivations, and so we tailor the message to each. For board members and major donors, make it very personal and specific to their level of engagement. They might want to be engaged at a much deeper level because not only do they want to make the investment, but they want to participate in some way. And that's great. In most cases, it's great. I've even seen where a major gift will allow someone to conduct the symphony orchestra or to be able to present some of their art or whatever that looks like. As long as it's agreeable to all parties, it's a fantastic way to do that. Tailor your message to different prospect groups. And that idea of what's important to them, what motivates them, you're a complicated organization. You offer a lot of different activities, not just consumables to audience members or visitors. This is an opportunity then for you to really begin to tailor that message. Number 4, build an emotional connection. As I said earlier, emotion is often the driving force behind charitable giving. It's the motivation that says, I feel good about this. And I know we have different sayings about, give till it hurts. And sometimes people say, no, give till it feels good. But we want to touch the emotional part of someone so that they feel good about having given. Part of the way that we do that is by crafting good stories about our activities, real life stories, not made up stuff. If your organization is deeply involved in the community, deeply involved in education, you're going to have hundreds of potential stories to talk about. We're committed to this. We believe it's valuable, and so does the public, as evidenced by these stories. Those are ways that you can talk about it, that real emotional connection. Number 5, make messages clear and ask specific. Clarity is key when making an ask. Be specific about the amount you're requesting and how it's going to be used. Avoid vague language like, we need your help, or a gift of any size will help. That's really, really vague, and it doesn't help the donor make a decision. A gift of $1,000 would allow us to do XYZ and be very specific about what that is, or would help support our programs in the operating budget like this, that, and the other thing. Be specific in those regards. Make sure the donor understands exactly what their gift is set out to accomplish. All that said, one of the questions we get most frequently at RSC is, how do we develop the right case statement? And we take them through this process. But as a reminder, people generally give for one of those 3 motivational reasons: what it does for the organization, what it does for the community, what it does for them personally. And part of developing that case statement is making sure that it's flexible enough to adapt to any of those 3 areas of interest. You can learn to adapt your message to each of those reasons, but first, you must have a compelling, overarching case statement as your primary tool from which to adapt. So it's great to have flexibility, but let's talk about really developing that message in the first place. We'll drill down a little deeper here now, and here are the questions that you want to answer when creating a case statement. First of all, you talk about, what do you do? We know who you are. You're one of the arts organizations, the museum or the opera company or the dance company. And so listing out everything that you do is the very first step. And I know it's an exhaustive process, particularly the bigger the organization you are, probably the longer this list is going to be. But do it. Take the time, write out everything that you do. And then for each one of those, talk about, how do you do it? Is it hands-on artist work? Is it more virtual learning? Is it performances and the things that go around performances? Think about how you do each one of those. Think about why you do it next. Why do you do it? Then you talk about, what value do you provide? The great thing about arts organizations, they provide value like so many other nonprofits, but they do it in such a unique, wonderful way that you can talk about the value only you can provide, only your organization can provide. Next, how's it funded? Who pays for it? Sometimes it's grants, sometimes it's individual private support, sometimes it's a sponsorship. But you want to complete that story for each one of those points of, what do you do? How is it underwritten? Who underwrites it? How's it done? And then, of course, how are the funds used? Is it used for direct costs? Is it used for artists? Is it all general operating because all those things are in the budget? And so there's not a direct line from the gift to the expenditure, which is my preference because it allows you some flexibility with the donors. Most donors aren't going to care dollar for dollar. Show me where every single one of my pennies went. Some grantors will. But in terms of just how are the funds used, we want to be able to speak to that in at least general terms. Before we move to the next step, I want to just give you a sneak peek for the outcome. The thing I'm encouraging you to do is list out every activity that you do and answer all these questions. That's the first thing. And then when you have that list, you'll start to naturally group like-minded activities into pillars. Usually 3, sometimes 4, but I like 3. Then we name those pillars. Often it'll be something like artistic, educational, and community. Doesn't have to be that. Don't lock your mind into thinking it has to be that, but often it's something along those lines. So we name those pillars, then we attach dollars to the activities to those pillars. And so you might say, this pillar of activity accounts for 38% of our budget. The next one's 55% of our budget, and the third pillar is the remaining balance. It could be along those lines, but know the value in total of each of those pillars after you do the grouping. And then we'll talk about developing real-life stories. This is the why. Why do you do what you do? What's the value? And the best way to do that is to come up with high-value, true stories about the impact of the work that you do. And finally on this, I'd say using that message at whatever level of detail is appropriate. The idea is to say, we can have a case statement that flies at 30,000 feet. It's all general, it's the 3 pillars. Or for those donors who are really specific and want to learn more about particular activities, you can drill deep very quickly into one of those pillars. But in short, taking this structured approach to developing your case gives you this idea of facts and feelings and finances that really make a holistic case statement. It rounds it out. It provides all the detail and all the information that you need, but again, allows you to be very flexible. Next, attach these great stories. I kind of keep slipping this in, but make them real stories. I promise you, if you're an active arts organization, you have plenty of stories. All you have to do is seek them out. Seek them out and record them, get permission to use them or to use the quote, and utilize that as you're talking with prospective donors to say, this is why we're important. And number 4, practice, practice, practice. In earlier sessions, I said you really have to practice your case development. It's not the sort of thing that you want to improvise as you go along. Be prepared, know your stories, know your information. Doesn't mean you have to know every single thing about the organization at any given moment, but have some stories from consumers, so people who come to your events or your concerts or performances. Have some from artists, from the board, from a teacher, a principal, a student where you do an education event, and really make it a practice to collect stories and collect photographs as much as you possibly can, because visually you're going to want to tell that story as well, in not just in words, but also in pictures. So make sure that you collect that data and information and those photographs so that you can utilize them. All right, so what are your next steps? First, I would say go through the exercise. Dig deep into your mission, your vision, and your activities to create the pillars so that you can define the facts, the finances, and the feelings that make your organization clearly worth supporting. Number 2, create that message. Go ahead and write that message out. It's okay to have 10 drafts. It's better to have 20 drafts. It's okay. But you want it to be at different levels. You want it to be at a really detailed level. You want it to be at a really high level. You want to be practiced in both of those. Number 3, be ready to tailor that message. Adapt the message that voices your organization to the people who you're talking with. And so if it's broad-based, it's different than if it's a one-on-one conversation, which is different than if it's a board member. Does this case statement that I've written now, is it adaptable? Number 4, can you leverage that message in multiple channels? Can you use it face-to-face? Can you use it in direct mail? Can you put it on your website? Can you use it in social media and connect those facts and finances and feelings? And so look at that. And last, again, practice your message. Practice it enough that you're comfortable with it. What I like to say is, if you can have coffee with a friend and just go through this with them and talk, and you're comfortable going through it, you've got it down pretty well by then. Once you go through that exercise, you go through all these steps, you can have the facts, the feelings, and the finances all sorted out. You can talk about your organization at a very broad level or a very program-specific level. You can refresh that case annually. Unless you begin a new program, you probably don't need to refresh it more than once a year. In fact, some cases that we help our clients develop get 2, maybe 3 years out of their case statement because it's that good. It's that versatile. Just to wrap this up, I'd say your fundraising message needs to be clear. It needs to be heartfelt, and it needs to be tailored to whichever audience that you're speaking with. Be focused on facts, feelings, and finances so that you can create a message that resonates with a variety of donors and their motivations to give.